Welcome to the video on the third lab from course 10981. In this lab we'll look at actually patching and updating the virtual machine fabric. This will be split by two main exercises. The first one looking at actually updating Virtual Machine Manager itself, and then the second one actually looking at sort of patching the fabric servers. So we'll see how we progress. So straight into Virtual Machine Manager, what we're going to do is actually have a look at patching the Virtual Machine Manager servers themselves. So we're just going to use the cluster management tool. Obviously we could have done this from the physical host, doesn't really matter where we do it from. We're going to do this from inside VMM though, and we're actually going to put one of the nodes into a drain state. So effectively what that means is the machine won't be there to be able to service requests in a failure scenario, and that will allow us to patch it, take it offline, those sorts of steps. So we're going into the Virtual Machine Manager cluster, coming down to the roles section, and we can actually currently see LUNVM1 is the current owner. So we're going to go to LUNVM1, and we're actually going to right click and choose the pause, drain roles. So this will basically, anything that's running on it will be moved across. So the key thing is we can see again the box pop up telling us that we've lost the connection with Virtual Machine Manager. So effectively the Virtual Machine Manager service will be being moved across onto onto VM2. So we're just going to jump across into the media, and we're actually going to find the updates that we've got. So there's two updates that we're going to apply. Okay. So first of all, we're going to take a copy of them and actually bring them across onto the VMM box. So we're actually just going to put them on the desktop for ease of access. And you see that we've got actually an update for the VMM server itself and an update for the console. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to update VMM, and then we'll go and actually update the console itself. So we're just quickly navigating to the folder where the patches are actually stored, and then we're going to run MSI exec to actually go and install the updates for us. So an MSI exec /p, because we're actually going to be applying an MSP file, a patch file. We're actually going to sort of run it in quiet. I'm not going to want to sort of restart. If you wanted to, you could also set options so that it would actually go and generate a log. So we're going to do that as well with the L*V. So we're going to turn on verbose logging and specify that we want to create a log file called vmm server.log. So that will go and install the patch file for us. So standard sort of Windows software installation dialog appearing, and we'll just hang on a few seconds while we wait for the actual patch to install silently, in terms of no interaction rather than not being able to see anything on the screen. Just get the quick warning basically saying that the Virtual Machine Manager agent is running. Can we automatically stop this, or let them stop and restart the agent for us? As we can see, the Virtual Machine Manager console is up and running again, even though the patch is still installing, because obviously the console is now talking to LUNVM2. So the patch should finish installing in the next few seconds, and then we'll review where we are. Okay, so that's the Virtual Machine Manager patch installed. So what we'll do is we'll just go into change the command line, so that we'll actually change it so that we're going to be applying the patch to the console. So hopefully we'll just go and change the command line and get the command line correct. All the other options can stay the same. You could actually choose to save the stuff to the same log file, or alternatively you could actually change the log file name if you wanted to. So in this instance I'm not going to change the log file name. When I patch the other server, just for demonstration purposes, I will patch the log file. So hopefully the updating of the Virtual Machine Manager console will be much quicker than the VMM server itself. Now obviously with any updating you would need to consult the documentation to see what the correct order of updating is. Do you need to update in our case the Virtual Machine Manager first, or the console, or vice versa? And also, is the old console compatible, and so on. So you might need to consider that as part of your deployment model. So that's now updated. Obviously the console was much quicker to update. So if we go back into the failover cluster manager, what we're now going to do is we're actually going to take the system out of drain mode. So we're going to say do not drain anymore. Okay, and we could obviously at that point drain VM2, but just for the purpose of illustration, we're actually going to do it in a slightly different way, and we're going to go and do it via connecting to VM2. Of course, we could have also have decided to have patched VM2 first, because the application was running on VM1. We're just literally just doing this to show you that the application stays running as we sort of move the application around. So again, we'll go to VM2 in the cluster manager, exactly the same as we did before. I'm actually going to hit the drain nodes. So again, we see the console get disconnected because VM2 was the active virtual machine manager server, and that will now switch across to the VM1 machine. And we're going to do exactly the same as we did before. So we're going to take a copy of the patches, and we're actually going to run the installation exactly the same way as we did before. So I'm just going to sort of speed up the video rather than us have to sit here and watch all the steps again. Having now patched the virtual machine manager servers, we obviously need to patch any machines that are running the virtual machine manager console now. So the basic machine we have is our Hyper-V host that's running the console. So we're actually just going to install the patch for the console so we can start running the console on the physical box again as well. So again, we'll just watch this very quickly. Having completed the patch update, hopefully we should now be able to launch the Virtual Machine Manager console, and we should see that the Virtual Machine Manager console is now working all okay as well. So we can see the console's working successfully. Notice though, we go in and we see that our hosts actually have a problem. As we can see, the host agent is actually in a warning state and effectively telling us that it needs to be upgraded. Okay, so we need to sort of resolve that problem. So we can obviously resolve that problem by just updating the agent manually. Obviously the problem that would cause is effectively if you've got hundreds or thousands of hosts, it's be a very time consuming process. So one of the ways it becomes quite effective to do that is actually to leverage PowerShell. So we've got a PowerShell command prompt here. I'm actually going to use this to enable us to update all of the agents in one go. So the first thing we're going to look for is any computers that are managed by a System Center Virtual Machine Manager, and we actually want to return the machines where the current version of the agent is not equal to the current version. So we're just going to sort of look for the keyword current, and if we don't find that, it will then return the machines that will meet that criteria. So obviously if we just left that on its own, that would actually return any machine that potentially had a VMM agent on it. So what we're going to try and make sure that we do by using the role is only return machines that are Hyper-V hosts as well. So we're actually going to use the role not equal to VMM server role, so we're not going to get the VMM server returned to us, because obviously we don't want to update that. It's already been effectively updated, just in case there was any case or any issue along those lines. So effectively that information gets stored into a variable. Obviously to go and update agents, no surprise, you need a set of credentials. So what we're actually going to do is obviously use the cred $equals get hyphen credentials to actually allow us to supply a set of credentials interactively. If you was putting this into a script, it's one of the options where you could have maybe read a run as, so you could have actually retrieved a set of run as credentials for performing this same action. So you could have done that to achieve exactly the same results. Obviously we're just doing it this way just to show that we can do it more than one way. So here we're now going to use the $agents, which will return the list of computers that we want to update. We're then going to run the update-scvmm manage computer, We've got to supply the credentials, so we specify the credentials that we're going to use. Obviously you would normally specify the names of the machines that you want to update, but again we're using the $agents to actually do that for us. So this should now hopefully be reaching out to each of those machines and updating the agents for us. This process will of course take a few minutes to complete. So hopefully we'll see in the next few seconds that the system will come back and notify us that the update's been complete. So we're updating the library server and hopefully going off and updating the LUN-host 1 and LUN-host 2 machines as well. So we've actually got 3 sets of information come back there quite quickly, telling us that the update agent has worked. So we're closing the PowerShell prompt and just jumping across to Virtual Machine Manager, and what we're going to do in here is we're going to add a Windows Server update server. So this would allow us to apply patches to Outja. So this could be Hyper-V hosts, this could be the VMM server itself. And this would allow us to do it in an orchestrated way for the purpose of caching, clustering. So we just specify the name of the server, the port it's on, and obviously administrative credentials. So hopefully we should see a job which is going to register the server with us. Now one of the things this will try to do is it will try to do a synchronization with Microsoft. So again we will get a warning when this job completes, just purely because the WSUS, the Windows Server Update server, does not have internet access and therefore can't synchronize its patches. Again, this is going to take a few seconds, so we'll skip to the end of the job. So we're just coming to the end, and as you can see, the error looks far worse than what it really is with a big red X, but if you look above, it does just tell you completed with info, and basically identifying that we couldn't connect to the Microsoft Windows Update site. So we're going to switch over to the library panel, go into the update catalog and baselines, and create ourselves a baseline. So we're actually going to choose the create menu, create an update baseline. So we'll give this update baseline a name. So update baselines group patches together and then allow you to target those updates to particular machines in your infrastructure. So we'll imaginatively call it critical updates. Obviously if we wanted to supply a description we could. So just critical updates for library servers. So we'll press next. You've then got the box where you can select the updates. So you can either pick updates from the list, or you can use keyword searching to find the updates that you're very interested in. So we're just going to select all the critical updates in the system. So we'll actually select them all, and then we'll just go back and select that one deselect that one security update. There we go. So we add all of those into the list. We then identify the machines that we'd like to patch. So we've just selected the library server, and that will create the baseline and attach that baseline to that machine. It doesn't actually cause the system to sort of rush out and start doing any patching, so the creation of the baseline is a very quick process. What we would actually then need to do is effectively go and scan the machine, which we would do via the Fabric panel. So let's go into the Fabric panel, go to our library server, so we can see our library server listed. We'll press the compliance button, and if we expand the server we can see the baselines attached. We can press the scan button, which will initiate a scan, and it will update our compliance status. So obviously our compliance status is currently listed as unknown, so we'll either get a compliance status of compliant to tell us that we're all in sync, or we'll get a compliance status of non-compliant, which tells us that we're not in sync. Once the compliance job completes, we see just gone along to have a look and you can see that it's not complete. We've got the non-compliant status. So with the non-compliant status we effectively have two options. The first option would be to exclude updates if there's some reason we can't apply those updates, or the other option would actually be to actually go and apply the updates. So we can actually see we've got a bit of PowerShell here which we could quite easily run, which is going to allow us to go and control whether we reboot or the machine when we actually patch it. If it's a VMM host, what would actually happen to the VMs that are on it. So here we're just going to say we want to remediate the machine. If we wanted to exclude any updates we would be able to do that. So here you can see we've got the do not restart that we saw in the PowerShell, and again if it was a Hyper-V host you saw down the bottom the options where you could either put the VMs into a save state, or you could live migrate the VMs off if you was in a cluster. Obviously, how long it takes to go and patch the virtual machines is obviously very much down to how many patches are missing, how long each patch in turn takes to install. So, so there's a couple of factors that would be affected by that. So as you can see at the moment, we've actually gone out, started the update process, we've actually installed the missing updates. Because we're not actually going to reboot the machine, effectively the reboot phase is complete. Notice we also do a compliance test again at the end of the update process, just in case there's more patches needed. We've all experienced that scenario where you apply patches and then actually the application of patches means that other patches are available for that system. So we're doing that check again just to make sure that it's completely up to date. So the machine now seems to be up to date. The update job is completed successfully. It's not identified more updates. So we should hopefully see that the machine is now compliant. So going over to the Fabric panel, we can see the machine listed, and we can see the machine has a compliant state. So in this video we looked at patching the Virtual Machine Manager infrastructure, the Hyper-V hosts, the libraries, machines that have the console installed on them, and also looked at using the compliance engine and apply patches using VMM to our infrastructure.